Hi and welcome to Fantasy Footy Fan, Jeff here. I managed to find some time to put out a round one review video of my fantasy team and also discuss potential trades, who to trade out, who to trade in. So I thought I'd just start with how I went this week. So I scored a 2072, pretty happy with that. Overall ranking 8,257. So that's a pretty good start. I've been listening around to some of the content around, and you got a mixed bag. Some not starting as well, some actually starting quite well. But I'm pretty happy with being in the 8,000s after round one. Obviously, have a few minor trades to adjust. So what I'd do is I thought I would just firstly quickly discuss my team. And then potential trades I'm going to make in my team, and then I'll do just a quick review of some of the games in relation to just some of the players that you'd be considering trading in, and also some of the players you're likely to be trading out. So just starting with Nick Dacos, I've had him from the start. A lot of teams out there were fading him, but I'm pretty happy that I've started with him. He's got his buy in round 5, but yeah, I'm pretty happy with his performance so far. He's averaging 117, so you got to be pretty happy with that. He's made 15k, 55% owned, so there's a lot that have traded him in this week, but would have owned him as well. Maybe a Sicily to Dacos trade was probable for many. Again, Harry Sheezel, I pretty much had Dacos and Sheezel in my team the moment fantasy opened, and Hayden Young. These were the three I rarely changed off. So I'm happy to have Sheezel and Hayden Young. They've been in my team this whole time. And Yo. So Yo's the one that I'll give him one more week this week, because I've got some other trades I really want to make before looking into Yo, and even Ollie Wines for that matter. They're the two I was a little bit disappointed in, hoping to get a bit more out of them. Connor Buderick, obviously he's the one that I am going to make a change to. And so we're looking at D'Ambrosio. He's the one that I'm sort of looking at for Buderick, because I'm going to be making, let's see if I can find him, D'Ambrosio. There we go. So he's 498k. Buderick's 521k. So not only am I, making, like 23k off this trade, I'm getting a player who got 94 in his first game, and his break even's 29. So I'm pretty happy with that. And D'Ambrosio's got a good role. He's playing at halfback. He's running up the wing a little bit as well. So I'm pretty happy with that. His first game was against Essendon, so it was against his old team. And generally when players play against their old team for the first time, they tend to step up. And it looks like he did. But, he's probably not getting 94 every game. But, if he can average around that 70 mark, you're going to be pretty happy with that. So Buderick to D'Ambrosio, he's probably one of the more popular trades, D'Ambrosio, this week. Howe's pretty happy with him. You kind of had to start him after he went in round 0. Williams, I've already moved onto my bench. I'm keeping him, bringing him back for round 3. And Zach Reed, he got injured, but I'm just going to keep him on my bench for now. We're pretty shallow there down back for rookies. If you have just having a quick look now, I'm that's the other thing. I'm actually pretty fortunate that I've started with all of the sort of good rookies that have scored well in round 1 for most of them. But in defense, I've already got Howes. I guess Hoare was the other one that some might have started with. He did really well, so he got a 62. If you've started with him, that's great. If you've got the cash, to bring him in if you don't have any other more pressing trades and you need to bring in a defender, maybe for a Gibcus or a Reed, then Marty Hall probably is the one to be bringing in my opinion. He does have the bye in round 6, but that's obviously not for a few games away. And he's only 328k, but between that 200 to 299k, there's really nothing there. We could have gone Warner from Fremantle, but he got knocked out, and the injury report says that he's out for 2 weeks. So, Hewland, if you're really desperate, might be one to bring in, and that's only because he got a 67 in his last game. He got 26 in round 0, but at least he got 67 last week. So if you're really desperate, you could bring in Hewland. He's actually missing next week anyway because of his bye. But again, like I said, if you're really desperate and you really need someone back there, or if you've got absolutely nothing else to do, then yeah, maybe you could make that trade. But moving on to my midfield, really happy I started with Tom Green. He, in my opinion, from the start of the year, I felt he was going to be a top 5, not just top 5 midfielder, but the top 5 player in the whole game. And because of that, because I felt that way based on my research, I thought, I know he has the bye in round 3, but I think he's worth starting, and it's paid off. So, of course, I had the vice captain on Dacos, and I took his score of 123. I did have the captaincy on Tom Green, and he got 145, but obviously I took Dacos' score. He got over 120, so you got to take that score, and I was pretty happy to do that. And for that matter, my captaincy and vice captaincy this week is again the same combination. So VC Dacos into Green against West Coast in the last game of the round. So that's the way I'll be going. Butters I was pretty happy with as well. He scored a 107, but it was a game against West Coast. Again, you take that for what you want. Let's just see how he scores this week. So he's so what Port have Richmond at the G, I think that is. So we'll see how it goes. I mean, again, Richmond have been a bit up and down, competitive then not competitive. So we'll see how Port goes. But, with Richmond, Presti is injured as well. So their midfield is a bit weakened. So you would think the Port midfield would dominate against Richmond this week. Potentially even captaincy options as well to be considered there. So happy with the Butters trade. Starting Butters. I wanted to start LDU because I just love LDU, love the way he plays. Scored a 98. That's okay, but we'll see how he goes this week against Fremantle. Fremantle have a decent midfield, obviously, but you would expect, playing at home, that LDU should get over 100. If he doesn't, then again, going to have to sort of think what I'm going to do with him. And for that matter, he obviously won't be on my radar because next week, depends on how Yo and Wines go. I'll be looking at probably trading one of those out if they don't actually do too well. Happy with Nick Martin. He did really well. Just his disposal efficiency and clangers were an issue, but obviously that's not an issue with AFL Fantasy. He's got the halfback role. He's running up and down the ground. He's getting the ball. That's all you want. So I'm pretty happy with him. He's got a break even of 88, and you'd hope that he would get that. So Ollie Wines is the one that I'm very disappointed in, hoping to score more. Didn't spend as much time in the midfield, or at least in the CBAs as we had hoped. He's got a BE of 89, a break even of 89. I'm really, really hoping he can get that 89 so he doesn't actually lose, anything, any more money. What did he get? So he lost 5k. So that's, again, you don't want to be losing money with some of these like high-end mid-prices and premiums that you're picking. If he gets, 89, if he gets 87 at least, he goes up 5k. So he actually makes up for that money he's lost. If he can do that, then at least he stays at the same price. I know other players around him have gone up, but I don't want him to lose money too much, and I may end up considering trading him next week. Rookies are everything, of course, for success in fantasy, because you've got to get your rookies right from the start so that they can make money, then you can downgrade them and then upgrade your players. So, in defense, it's a bit tough because we're not really getting much out of our rookie defenders, but in our midfield, we've got some pretty decent rookies there. So Matt Roberts, really happy with him. So glad I started with him. He's already made 110k and he's on a negative 11 break even, and he's got job security and he's got a decent role in the team. So hopefully you've started with him. Is it too late to bring him in? No. Definitely not. He's 355k, so he's that little bit of an expensive rookie now. But this is the thing, if we've missed Roberts and we've got a Jai Clark and we've got the money, we may consider bringing Roberts in if there are no other pressing issues. So this is probably your last time to be getting in some of these rooks, because if Roberts only scores a 47, he goes up by 46k and then he becomes ultra expensive. He cracks 400k and you're just not bringing him in at that price. So I'm happy I started with him. Same with McKercher. I would imagine 67% owned, so most started with McKercher, but if you haven't, I'd say this is probably your last chance to get him in as well. -3 break even. If he gets a 71 this week, then he goes up by 59k. Another one that will crack the 400k mark as well. So, happy I started with him. Jeremy Sharp's that other one. Some started with him, some didn't. 31% owned. I was happy I started with him. Break even of 3. If he scores a 47, he goes up by 35k. Another one that'll be quite expensive. He'll be around the 350 mark next week if he just gets 47, but you'd think he'd get more than that. But he's another one that he scored a 79. Pretty happy to have him. Sanders, I think most would have started him as well. 68% owned. Obviously, he got bevoed. Got subbed when he was actually doing quite well. Scored a 68 still. Got to keep an eye out this week how Sanders is going to be used. We're hoping he plays a full game and he doesn't get subbed or doesn't start as the sub. So the question really is do you start him on the field or not, depending on the other rookies that you have. It's like in my case, I've got Roberts, McKercher, and Sharp. And then I've got Sanders on my bench at the moment because Bevo's unpredictable, so I'm just not too sure what to do. So I've just got Sanders on the bench. There's every chance Sanders could, if he plays a full game, could outscore all these guys, all my other rookie players on field. So I'm just going a little conservative, I guess, and we'll just see what happens. Happy I started with Gawn. He scored a 137 last round, even though, he scored in round 0. He scored an 87. So I think some might have jumped off that. But yeah, he came out firing 137 and he'll be great for the year. He's already, so he's gone up by 30k, break even of 76, which you'd expect him to get. He'll go up likely another, 25 to 30k this round. Grundy is the big talking point, of course. We can be a little bit reactionary with, with these, how these players score. He scored 118 in round 0 against Gawn, and he was the talk of the town. Everyone's like, oh yes, Grundy, so glad I started with him, or I'm going to have him in my team and all this kind of thing. And then he puts out a 53, which yes, is putrid for him. But then everyone's quickly jumping off him. That's okay. I can understand that, especially when you haven't got Sherry. That's perfectly understandable trade to make from Grundy to Sherry. Because Grundy his break even's 85. He should get that, you would think. But his value is at 715k, and Sherry he's 622k. So you're making nearly 100k off that trade. And Sherry had a great game in round 1. He got 121. So it's I think I haven't checked it, but I'm pretty sure that's probably the most popular trade this round is the Grundy to Sherry trade. So yeah, look. completely understandable to make that trade. For me, I'm holding just for one more week because I've just got two other trades I just prefer to make over Grundy. But there's every chance I could make that trade next week. Yes, I'm not making as much money next week because it's, with Sherry, his break-even's only 34, and he's going to make a lot more money than, say, what Grundy will potentially make. So I might make that trade next week. We'll see how both of them play. I also think too, just with Grundy, he had 7 free kicks against him. So he scored 53, but he lost 21 points. So that could have been 74 points. Potentially. But I also think too, I don't want to make excuses for Grundy, but it's he's just moved over to Sydney. It's his first game back in Melbourne. He's playing at the G as well. Actually, wait a second. Who did? That's right. So he's back at the G. I think that his previous game, he played against Melbourne, that was in Sydney, I'm pretty sure, right? But either way, he's playing at the G, I think for the first time. I just can't remember where that game was. He's playing against his old side in Collingwood. They've just won the premiership last year, unfurled the flag in front of him as well. And so he's come out, tag-teamed from Cox and Cameron. Maybe that had a bit of an impact on him. It is possible. They say that footy, the 80% of footy is played above the shoulders. So there's every chance of that. I'll cut him a little bit of slack. It is a terrible score still, but we'll see how he goes next week. I had started with Jackson. I'm really happy with that. He scored a 96. He did get that mark and kick and goal towards the end, and that probably saved his score a little bit. He went up 8k. His break even's 86. We'll see how he goes this week. The only concern, of course, with Young, even though Young did quite well, and Jackson, who also did quite well, is that because of their injuries, there's talk that Young may go back into defense and that Reedy may come in to the side. So we've got to keep a lookout for that. If that takes place, then I think Jackson may have to be traded out a little bit earlier than expected if he's playing with a ruck, because we've only really brought him into the team because Darcy was injured, because he was rucking solo. But if he's not rucking solo, well, then he might not have that value that we thought he would. Hayden Young, look, the halfback role is the role that, why we brought Nick Martin in and why some have brought in Amon in as well. It's that role it's like the new midfield role. It's the role that's supposed to get a lot of points. So we brought Hayden Young into our teams because we originally thought he's playing in the midfield and he's going to get more points. But he's going down back to halfback potentially. And if he does, you would think his scores would still be just as good. But we'll just have to wait and see what happens with that and what Longmuir decides to do. Heaney, really happy I started with him. I initially had Fisher, so I'm happy I upgraded to Heaney. He's just on fire, 26% owned, 51 break even. He's gone up 86k already, gets an 89 this week. He goes up another 35k. So he's making some great cash for us. And I think when Mills and, well, maybe not so much Mills, he's coming in later in the year, but when Parker and Adams comes back into the team in a couple of weeks, that should hopefully tie in with Heaney's round 5 bye, and maybe that'll be the time to jump off Heaney and maybe move over to a Flanders or, maybe to another, another high-scoring forward. But yeah, we can probably worry about that a bit later. Nat 5, he really outperformed. Not really more for me. So I was actually expecting this score, but I know many were surprised. When you have a look at Nat 5 through the preseason, what you're looking for is he's got the talent and the skill, and obviously he's lost the speed because of his age. But what's the role he's going to play? Well, he spent a lot of time in the midfield in his preseason games. But then the question is, but he's going to be managed. But he spent a lot of time on the ground in those preseason games. So when I saw that, I thought, he's fit, and they want to just put him in the midfield and just play him there and give him as much time as possible in the midfield. Kind of like a last year kind of thing. Throw him in the midfield and let's just see what he can do, because they've tried him at forward, it hasn't worked. Let's get him right and get him in the midfield. So when I saw that, I thought, I think he's worth it at his price. So he's gone up 23k, got 86, break even of 39. If he gets an 85 this week, he goes up another 39k. So you got to be pretty happy with that if you own him. If you don't own him, then he, along with a few other players, are worth bringing in. Obviously, Billings is a popular pick this week. James Jordan, if you don't have him, and then that 5 all around in that price point in the forward line. But so I'm happy with him. Happy with Jordan as well. He's actually doing quite well, doing what we expected him to do. He's gone up 53k. He's averaging 77. Break even of 32. If he gets a 64, he goes up another 28k. So he's doing the job we want him to do. Alex Sexton, he's doing pretty good as well. He's gone up 66k now. He's averaging around 73, 74, so you got to be happy with that. Break even is 22. If he only gets a 50, he goes up another 25k. So I actually think he's going to make us quite a bit of money. Obviously, he's got his buy in round 3, so you may decide, let's trade him out. Let's get him down to a rookie that we now know, a rookie that's doing well, make some cash and upgrade elsewhere. That definitely is a possibility. Or you can ride him out and then wait till he maxes out and then do the trade then. But I'm really happy I started with him. And then Harley Reid. So we've got to keep an eye on Harley Reid. He only scored a 55, 83% owned. Practically nearly the whole competition owns him, barring 16, 17% of course. But we'll keep an eye on him because we've got to see how he's managed and how he's used. Does he play sort of managed minutes? He's got a good role though. He's playing a fair bit in the midfield and up forward. So, for now, he's still worth holding on to. We'll see how that goes. Seth Campbell was a good one to start with. Because, we were a little bit lower, a little bit not depleted, but we didn't have as many forward rookies we could choose. And he had a really good round 0 game, 61, and then now a 48. He's on a -1 break even, gets another 48, he goes up 39k, and he's already gone up 68k. So you got to be, I guess, happy with that if you've got him. Darcy Wilson's the other one, a good rookie to have, gone up 26k, 7 break even of 7. And if he scores a 54, he goes up 37k. So he's a good one to have, and even a good one to definitely bring in as well if you don't have him. Harvey Gallagher, I just put him in because I just felt like I had no one else to really put in, and he was named on the wing. Not that I take too much notice of teams in round 1 where they're positioned, because coaches change those positions. But he's only 12 or to 13% owned, but so far so good. Scored a 56, that's okay. Got a break even of 2. He's gone up 25k. If he gets a 47 this week, he goes up by 35k. But I don't think he's one we're going to have for long. Probably a slower burn, so we may end up trading him out in the not too distant future. Looking at the rookies, if you don't have some of those rookies, well, then they're the rookies that you need to bring in. You've got your Blake Howes, for example, your Roberts, McKercher, Sharp, Sanders. Jai Clark obviously was no good. We'll see how he goes this week. Some are probably jumping off him, but because of these other trades I'm making, I'm not touching him yet. So Buderick is to D'Ambrosio is the trade I'm making, and then this is the other trade I'm making, is the Dempsey trade. So if we have a look at our rookies, and so we can see there just from the 200 to 299k rookies, We've got, Cadman is the highest averaging rookie at 51.5. And what that says to me is that I've started well with my rookies. I've chosen the right rookies on my field, because when I have a look at the rest of them, now Zach Reed's obviously injured for 4 weeks. Not his fault. He got 17, but he got injured. But Blake Howes, he's got over that 51 average. So Blake Howes, Roberts, McKercher, Sharp, Sanders. Sexton's an expensive rookie, but Harley Reid, Campbell, even Wilson, Gallagher, like they're all averaging over that 51 mark, which says to me that between that 2 to 299k, I've started really well with my rookies. But moving on, just in that next bracket, 300 to 399k, Dempsey's the one. So for me, Dempsey's the one I want to bring in. Now, I could bring in, with the cash that I make off the Buderick to D'Ambrosio trade, I could trade Wines to Crouch. So that's the trade I was initially thinking about doing. And it does sound like a really good trade, but my strategy and philosophy in playing fantasy is get your rookies right from the beginning. And I think Dempsey's just that last rookie that I really want to get onto, well, maybe not even get onto my field, but or even get onto my field maybe, but at least have in my team, because he's scored a 92, and so that's in his price cycle. He's 300k, which is pretty much what we paid for Harley Reid. So he comes in like a top dollar rookie, but he's got a 92 in the price cycle. And if let's see, if he's on a negative 10 break even, if he gets just a 33, he goes up another 35k. And he's already gone up 48k. So I think for me, Dempsey, he played really well. He's got good job security. So that will be my trade, is I will be trading Clark. I'll be swapping Clark with Wilson and bringing in Dempsey into my forward line. And then for me, that will have all my rookies set and then ready to go for the season. And then I'll keep a lookout on some other rookies. I'm having just a little look at Finn McRae at the moment, because he's come in as the sub. Let me just bring up his info here. So he's obviously didn't play round 0, came in as the sub and scored a 27. And he's got a break even of 42. He dropped 11k. So he's down to 300k now, pretty much like a top dollar rookie. And that's good, but he has been named in the team. Will he be named as the sub? In this instance, I don't think so. I think actually he will play. I don't know who they're going to name as the sub, but I think Finn McRae might play. And if he does play, then he's definitely getting more than his projected score of 25. Actually, sorry, I said he lost 11k. Sorry, he lost 6k. Is what he lost. Sorry about that. His break-even's 42. If he gets a score of 25k, which is what he's projected to, then he'll lose 11k. Sorry about that. But yeah, if he gets over 42, which I actually think he will if he's in the team, then I think he's one to keep an eye on, if not this week, because the game's tonight. So if he's not named as the sub and you're thinking of bringing in a rookie, then maybe instead of bringing Dempsey, you might decide to bring in McRae. It is an option. Or you may bring in, or if you've got nothing else to do, you may bring in Dempsey and McRae, or you may prefer McRae over Dempsey. So just keep an eye out for if he's named. I think for me, I'm still going to bring in Dempsey because I'm just not sure about McRae's future as far as he might play this week, but then he's not. But he might be named as the sub next week. That's the only thing I'm not sure about. So I might wait one extra week, take a good look next week. I know he may score a pretty big score, and he might go up a little bit. But I'll see how he goes this week, then have a look at him next week. Yes, he's got the bye in round 5, which is only a round or two after that. but he's a rookie, so he's there to make cash, not to be on my field and make money. If he and score points. If he does that, that's a bonus, but he's there to be making cash. So yeah, just keep an eye on him. Just a really quick review of some of the games in relation to more just the relevant players. Just having a quick look at Zach Williams. So he scored a 74, and so you got to be pretty happy if you've got him. So I wouldn't be trading him out. 69 and 74. It's kind of what we're expecting from him. And, he hadn't played for a very long time. He's got the role. He's got the job security. And I think he'll just continue to get better throughout the year. So that's probably all for me that interests me in the Carlton team. For Richmond, the other thing we're kind of looking for too is like premiums who haven't been scoring well, and then waiting till they bottom out and then looking at bringing them in. So Tim Taranto, he's actually been doing okay. So let's see. Well, I guess when I say okay, I forgot about his round zero score. Sorry about that. So he's got a 56 and a 91. So that's not great for him. So he's lost 85k and his break-even's 151. Even if he scores a 93, he loses 36k. So keep your eye on Taranto, because it could just be that he's just not started well for whatever reason. Maybe just getting used to the new game plan. But yeah, keep an eye on him. Wait till he bottoms out, because we remember how he started last year. He was on fire for the first half of last year. So yeah, let's keep an eye on him, on Taranto. Jaden Short, I'm not sure how many own him. I only really want to talk about players that are highly owned. Okay, he's not really highly owned, but so we'll just ignore him. Sorry if you do own him, but yeah. And then Gibcus got injured. Obviously, he's a trade out. So we'll just give him a miss. And of course, Seth Campbell I've already spoken about. So moving on to the next game, the Collingwood-Sydney game. So looking at the Collingwood players, I've already spoken about Dacos. Just looking through that game, there's probably no one else. Charlie Dean, he was dropped this week. I think it was was to be expected. And then I've spoken about Finn McRae. So there's no one else really there for Collingwood to talk about. Obviously, Heaney I've spoken about. Chad Warner is one to just keep your eye on. If you own him, you've got to be pretty happy with his performance so far. An 88, which wasn't a great start, but then 112 last week. So overall, he's made 10k, break even of 92. So don't know about bringing him in. He's got the bye coming up, and there's probably better options. But if you own him, you're keeping him. Errol Goulden's the other one, of course. He's one that he obviously didn't do very well in round 0, 69, but then got back to his game in round 1 with 111. So he's dropped 54k. His break-even's 135. Now, even if he scores a 98, he loses 20k. So he's one that, if you own him, obviously you keep him. But if you don't own him, then maybe keep an eye to see, where he bottoms out. It could be a good timing after his buy in round 5, maybe in round 6 he's bottomed out and ready to go to bring in. So just keep him in mind if you don't own him. Looking at the rest of the team, James Jordan I've spoken about already. Matt Roberts I've spoken about, and Brody Grundy I've spoken about as well. So that's it for that game. Essendon and Hawthorn. For Essendon, obviously if you've got Zach Merritt, he's doing typical Zach Merritt things that we know and love. So he's already gone up 8k, scored a 125 in his first game. And if you own him, then you're obviously a very happy owner. There was obviously fear that he might get the Finn McGuinness tag in round 1, but he didn't. And, for his 9% of owners, you're pretty happy with him. Are you bringing him in? You can. It's quite expensive. I mean, personally, you're always trying to look for value. Nick Martin, of course, I already spoke about him. If you own him, you've got to be pretty happy with that. If If you don't own him, then yeah, he's definitely value to bring in. He's only gone up 5k. His break even's 88. If he scores a 74, which is what he's projected, then he loses 4k. So he's still around the mark. For owners, of course, the 32% of owners, we're all hoping that he gets better. I know some might be trading him out for value. And that's understandable. Of course, we've got so many trades, 2 trades a week. So, yeah, it is an option. But I'm actually backing Martin in. I've watched that game. He's got the role at half back. He's got moving up and down the ground, like I mentioned earlier, and getting the ball. So, I think he's going to end up averaging between that 90 to 100 mark. And so I'm pretty happy with that for a mid-pricer. And then scrolling down to some other players that might be relevant. No one else except for Zach Reed got injured, so you're probably holding on to Zach Reed for now just because there's other trades to make. But yeah, if you don't have other trades to make and Zach Reed is one of your top 2 trades, then yeah, you're definitely trading him out. D'Ambrosio, of course, I've already spoken about. He's probably a popular pick to bring in if you're in a situation to be able to do that and you've got the cash. So definitely. Connor McDonald, there was a bit of talk about bringing him in. He's only 1% owned, so not many have jumped onto him. He's got a 69 break even. Yeah, I guess at that price you're looking at other players. Carl Amon, just want to see how many own him. Only 2%. There was so much talk about Carl Amon, half back roll, bringing him in, but not many people jumped on him. Only scored an 80, dropped 6k. So you're probably not thinking about him. Looking through the team, Jai Newcomb, he's obviously a massive disappointment. If you own Jai Newcomb, you're jumping off. 25k drop. He's got a break even of 122, projected to get an 89, and if he does, he'll lose 18k. So I would, look, if I owned him, I would be jumping on. There's much better value out there with players that have already scored quite well, like a Matt Crouch, for example, and other players. Actually, just how many own him? Okay, so 14%. So that's a decent amount. And then that's probably, James Sicily. I'm going through the fantasy points, and Sicily is right at the bottom. If you own Sicily, then you're bitterly disappointed. But I think the writing was on the wall with Sicily because, when you look at all the injuries, we know the stat with James Blank being out, but they've also got other injuries as well. And so when he, when he's got when there's so many injuries in the backline that they've got, his role has changed. That's the big thing with Sicily, is that his role has changed. So he's not playing that loose man in defense anymore. He's actually having to man up. So he's dropped 57k. His break even's 163. Even if he gets 83, which is projected score, he'll lose 52k. In my opinion, I would jump off. And if you own him, because he's 30% owned, so I would jump off, go to, you can go for real value, go down to a much cheaper defender that's scoring well, like a D'Ambrosio, but I would think you'd want to go to a premium that's around that mark, because he's now valued at 886k. And you think about, if you want to go to day cost now, you're going up by 100k. But if you don't have Sheasel's the one you'd jump on. If we have a look at actually some of these other defenders who are averaging and scoring quite well, look, you could Ryan, he scored 125, but I think he'll drop throughout the year. Whitfield, he's got the good role, looks in good form, but he's got the bye in round 3. McGrath does typical McGrath things, starts well, then lures you in, becomes a trap. But I would say if you don't have Sheasel, get onto Sheasel from Sicily, or Dacos if you don't have him, if you can afford him. But yeah, what we're doing with Sicily now is we're going to wait till he bottoms out, wait till that role changes, and the moment that happens, we bring him in. But that's all for Hawthorn. The other thing to note is that Finn McGuinness was used as a sub, which means that there's a chance he may not even be named in teams. And if he's not named, that's just great for any premium players, premium mids that you've got. Looks like he's actually going to be used as a forward stopper, and like as a defender on a forward. So we'll see. But I do have a feeling that in the Nick Dacos game, in the Collingwood game in round 4, I think that is, I actually think Sam Mitchell will bring him into the team purely just as a tagger for Nick Dacos, because it did work in the past. So I think we got to be prepared for that. For the GWS North Melbourne game, Tom Green, already spoken about. Jesse Hogan, I know he's not owned by many, but he's 1%. But he's after that last game, I'm not going to bother talking about him. You're not going to be bringing him in. Whitfield already spoken about, and Harry Himmelberg, I was actually kind of big on at the start because he had the full preseason in defense, and then and he's purely playing as a defender. He got an 86 in round 0, so things were looking good, but then got a 62 last week. So overall, he's made 10k, break even's 82, but buying round 3. So yeah, we'll just move on from him. Looking on at any other players, Cadman you may have started with as a bit of a rookie forward. So he's already made 52k. He scored a 47 and a 56, so that's pretty good. He's a key forward, so that's not bad for a key forward. 52k is made, break even of 3. If he gets a 32 this week, then he goes up by 25k. So I don't know whether you're bringing him in, because there's probably other forwards you can bring in. But if you've got him, then you can still hold him and just wait till he continues to make money. But I reckon he'll continue to average about that 50 to 60 mark. That's probably it. I think Harvey Thomas was that other one. I'm not going to bother talking about Harvey Thomas because he's just much lower in the list of rooks. Tristan Sherry I've spoken about already. You've got to be happy with him, and I'd say he'd be the number 1 trade target along with Billings. We'll get to Billings a bit later. Harry Sheasel, spoken about him, and LDU, and Colby McKercher. Who would have thought that North would be the team that has a lot of players that we'd be interested in for fantasy this year? It's awesome. And Zach Fisher was a bit disappointing. I think we expected a lot more from him, but just keep in mind he's only lost 1k. He scored a 68. He's got a break even of 77. His projected score 72, and it's actually saying that he'll actually make 2k if he gets 72, even though his break even 77. That's interesting. But either way, I would say that you're keeping him if you own him. I know many want to jump off. I would imagine that there's probably trades from Fisher to Billings going on. Again, that's fine. Remember that Billings has his buy in round 6 as well, but Billings should make some cash too. But I would hold. I actually like the role. He's got the role. He's playing at half back, and North are looking to get the ball in his hands because they feel that he's a good kick. So like when you look at his stats, he got 21 possessions and 17 of them were kicks. So I think that's a good indication of what they're trying to do. But we'll see. In his first game, in his new team, I would say to hold. George Wardlaw, I don't know if... Sorry, I'm just checking the ownerships of some of these players. 7% owned. So, okay, there are a few that own him. He's gone up 3k. He scored a 66. Break even of 64. So, yeah, I think he's okay. I wouldn't be bringing him in, that's for sure. If you own him, I think there's other players you could drop down to. He's actually a good player. He looks really good, but he's just not getting enough of the ball at the moment. But again, like I said, we don't want to be reactionary, do we? Like it's just 2 games in. For some of these players, only 1 game in. Charlie Lazaro, again, we're probably disappointed, I guess, with his score. He got a 52. We're hoping a little bit of a 60 to 70 points, hopefully. He did get a fair bit of time in the midfield as well. He's 42% owned. He's only a 22 break even, and if he scores a 38, he goes up by 15k. So, I'd say, he's a hold. Unless there's more pressing issues that you've got, then, you're looking at those. If you've got nothing to do, then you may look at maybe changing from a Lazaro to someone else. But I think for now, you're probably holding on to him. I don't know about bringing him in. I think I would go Dempsey over Lazaro just purely because of the job security and the score of Dempsey. Lazaro, I could kind of see him being a sub or being subbed or not being used as much. But I might be wrong. We'll see. We'll see how he gets used this week. Dersma, how many own Dersma? So he's 46% owned. So it's fair amount own him. So he scored a 52, which I think is probably about right for Dersma. I reckon he's probably going to average between 50 and 60. He's gone up by 15k. He's got a break even of 23. And if he scores 51, he'll go up another 24k. So, if you've got him, you're probably keeping him unless you don't have one of these, better, cheaper rookies. And that's a lot of players from North, isn't it? And then Toby Pink. I imagine there's a few that probably own Toby Pink. 45%. So he's going to be an ultra slow burn. He only got 32, went up by 7k, break even of 18. If he scores a 37, he goes up by 16k. So he's not making a lot of money. If you can trade him to another better rookie, and you got the money to do it, I would be doing that. Otherwise, I guess he's not overly a priority if you've got other more important things to worry about. Geelong and St Kilda. So looking at that game, Max Holmes was, I guess, more the talking point of that game. So he's in that really good price range between that 650 to 800k price range. So he's 700k. He's gone up by 17k. He got a 99. And he's got that really good halfback role. His break even is 69. And if he scores an 84, he goes up by 18k. So if you own him, you're obviously holding him. Do you bring him in? Well, he's definitely an option. He doesn't have an early buy. So he's, could be worth bringing in. I guess most might be looking at Matt Crouch, though, instead. Oliver Dempsey I've spoken about as well. He had such a good game. He had 15 possessions, 13 kicks, 7 marks. Kicked 3 goals, of course, in that. He's not kicking 3 goals every game, which is why he's not going to be averaging the 96 or whatever it was that he scored. But 83% game time. So he's got that security. I think you definitely want to try and get him into your team. Tom Stewart, disappointing from Stewart, but so he scored an 85. And he dropped 9k. His break-even's 113. So even if he gets 93 this week, he goes down by 8k. So he's one that if you own him, look, you're still keeping him because he's Tom Stewart. But if you don't own him, you're looking at him. You're looking to see at him if he does bottom out. With Tom Stewart, you never know. He'll come out this week and score a 130. That's how Tom Stewart rolls. That's what he does. But just keep an eye out if you don't own him, because he could be a good one to bring in if he continues to get these 80 to 90 scores. But it's unlikely. He should score well. Anyway, we want to keep an eye on. And then I think that's it for Geelong. Jai Clark, I guess, and Sean Manor were the 2 rooks that we started with, or many started with Jai Clark. So he's owned by 50% pretty much of teams. So 4k, he went up. Break even's 25. If he gets a 40, he goes up by 13k. We're hoping that he just gets more game time. He only got 59% game time. And of the 13 possessions that he got, only 7 of them were kicks. He didn't take any marks. So we're hoping this improves. But after this score, I'm just a little bit worried that he's going to be used as a sub or be subbed out. So I think for me, that's why I'm making this trade already from Clark to Dempsey. Now, having said all of that, like, you just never know. This week, Clark comes out and ends up getting used a lot more and scores well. That can potentially happen, but I just think I want to jump on Dempsey because he's already got that price and the job security as well. And then Sean Manor, he started as a sub. I actually think there are a few that own him. So he's 50% owned, I guess because we were short on forwards or short on that utility of who to use. So it's not too bad. Like, I mean, his price didn't change, unfortunately. It would have been nice if he'd gone up. But his break-even's only 23 because that's what he scored. And if he scores a 36 somehow this round, he goes up by 11k. We just have to see whether he's named, whether he starts as the sub. Fortunately, they play Friday night, Geelong, so we can actually have a good look to see who is named as the sub and who plays and so forth. For St Kilda, Rowan Marshall, of course, I'm not going to bother talking about him because if you own him, he's just a premium ruck. You're just keeping him. If you're looking at bringing in a ruck this weekend, probably not bringing in premium rucks. The only ruck that's worth bringing in is a Sherry. Jack Steele, he started well. He was good value. He scored 108, which is good. He went up 7k, so it's not much. He's still value. Break-even's 102. Will he get that this week? It's possible. So we'll just see how he goes. But signs are good with Jack Steele because what we look at with Jack Steele to see if he's going to be a good pick is he tackling and what is his contested possessions like. And he scored he scored 108, but he got 6. Let's see, he got 6 tackles, I think. Is that what he got? Yes. So he got 6 tackles and he got 12 contested possessions. So, you're happy with that. If you own him, you're keeping him, bringing him in. I'm not sure. Let's talk about the next player that a lot of players are probably looking at bringing him in, and that's Riley Bonner. There's a bit to talk about here. So, Bonner scored 102. And that would be obviously if you own him, which 15% of teams do, then you're obviously very happy with that. He's gone up by 38k. His break even's 24. If he scores a 57, he goes up by 29k. So do you bring him in? This is the question, isn't it? Like, do you bring in Riley Bonner? I'm waiting one more week, and the reason why is I just want to see how he performs with Jack Sinclair in the side. Now, I don't get a true indication of that this coming week because Brad Crouch has been dropped and Philippou, I think, was named on the ball. So, it could be that Sinclair actually steps in the midfield for Crouch and then Bonner plays that halfback role. And, if he does it again this week, it could be a move for me next week. I know he would have gone up by probably 60k overall, but he's still value, and maybe I drop Wines down to a Bonner, I'm not sure. But if you own him, you're happy, you're really happy. Do you bring him in this week? Sure, why not? Even if you're only going to have him for a week or two, even if Crouch comes back in next week, Bonner's going to easily make another 30 to 40k, maybe even more, depending on how he goes this round. Wanganeen Millera, I don't know how many. Let's see, he's owned by 11%, nearly 12% of teams, so that's a few number, or a decent number. And he scored an 84, which you were hoping he would score more than that. He went down by 6k, and even if he gets a 76 this round, he goes down by 15k. So, you wouldn't be bringing him in, but you'd keep your eye on him to see if he drops in value. Darcy Wilson, I've already spoken about, and Winhager, I actually had in my team from the start. He came back and scored a 61, but I'm not really interested in him. And I think that's it. Really from that game. Gold Coast and Adelaide. Sorry, I know this has gone for nearly an hour. I'll try and get through these as quick as I can. Sam Flanders, of course, you're very happy with starting with him. He scored a 119, and that's now a 92 and a 119 in his first 2 games. He is, as we all thought, playing in the midfield and scoring well. He went up 26k. His break-even's only 80. He's got a projected score of 74, but he'll get more than that. So if you've got him, you're keeping him, and he's a potential player to bring in as well. He's only 835k, but he's going up in price because he's got the role. But then you're tossing up between him and Heaney if you don't have either of them, maybe even Jackson. But yeah, I guess Matt Rowell is the one that's been the real surprise packet. It's kind of like his first year where he just launched in those first 3 games. So he's 8% owned. He's gone up by 43k. So he's scored a 112 and a 115 in his first 2 games. His break-even's only 82. And if he scores an 80, he goes up by 5k, which is what he's projected. Yeah. If he scores under his break-even, he goes up by 5k. Okay. So I think he's one to consider bringing in. He does have the buy in round 3. I don't think it's a bit of a flash in the pan with Matt Rowell. If you have a look at if you've watched him play, he's a beast. He got 29 possessions. He had 10 tackles, 20 contested possessions. He had 9 clearances, not as much as the 20 I think he had in the last game, but he's just an animal in that midfield. And I mean, obviously his scores are probably more suited to Supercoach, but he's still scoring well in fantasy. And if you own him, you're so happy with how he's playing. And I think he's could potentially average around that 110 mark, 1.5 to 110 this year, the way that he's playing. Tuke Miller, that one has really bummed me out because I've had Tuke in my team for most of the preseason, and I'm really happy with the way he's started. 110 and then now 100 as well. He's gone up by 21k. He's still value, I guess. 889k he's now worth, and he's owned by 13% of teams. He's got his buy in round 3 though. That's the only thing if you bring him in, and his break even's 100, which he'll likely get. You'd think, but yeah, he's a good pick, and if you've got him, that's great. If you don't have him, probably wait till after his buy. Let's see, Braden Fiorini. I know he's not owned by many. I don't know if many will be bringing him in, but he's got the role. That's what's great. 98 and 100 in his first 2 games. He's got that wing role. He's got job security. He's got that role permanently on the wing. His break even's 54. And I guess he'd be a pod. If you want to bring in a pod, I think he's a safe pod actually to be bringing in. Let's see, anyone else? Sexton I've spoken about. Jared Witts, I guess, yep. Tom Berry, yep, Tom Berry's doing all right. A bit expensive now. Actually, let's just have a quick look at Tom Berry. 378, not that expensive. Not really owned by anyone. 41 in his first game, but then an 84. He's got that pressure forward role. And then Bodie Uland, as I mentioned, if you're desperate, you can bring him in. Connor Buderick, you'd be getting out. For Adelaide, everyone was worried about Rory Laird. Would he play more forward? But, he was typical doing Rory Laird things and ended up scoring a 119. So he made 6k, break even's 113. He's just going to stay that price or around that price, that premium price. But let's talk about Matt Crouch, because he's an interesting one. So Matt Crouch is 14% owned. I would think that many would have brought him in. The only thing though is that game was an unusual game. Like, there wasn't many marks in the game. There was a lot of possessions in the game, and that's because it was a wet weather game. So does it give a true indication of how these players are going to play? I would say less than more. But either way, Crouch did really well. Like, if we have a look at his stats, he only 73% game time and scored a 113. He had 30 possessions, and usually with Crouch, 20 of those were handballs. But 16 contested possessions, and he spends a lot of time in that midfield. His CBAs are really high. So he made 23k, his break even 69. If he scores a 97, he goes up by 28k. So yeah, he's one that you'd be looking at probably bringing in this week, but I don't know whether I'd be expecting a 113 from him every game. I think just because of that wet weather suited him, he got that 113. But I think what we're hoping for with Matt Crouch is if he can average around that 100 mark, that would be wonderful if you own him. But yeah, he's still worth bringing into the team. Jordan Dawson was, I think, probably the one that obviously suffered the most. He's now one to keep an eye on because he dropped 20k and his break even is 140. Even if he scores a 98, he loses 23k. So let's keep an eye on him. Maybe wait till he bottoms out, and then maybe look at bringing him in. Let's see how low he can drop. But we're talking about Jordan Dawson here. Even though his break even's 140, he could pull out a 140 this week. So we'll just wait and see on him. As far as the other Adelaide players go, there's no one else. Chris Burgess, I guess, rookie, scored a 33, but I wouldn't be looking at him. I think that's about it. So going through these teams, sorry, if I've missed a relevant player, I apologise. I'm trying to get through this as quick as I can. Melbourne and the Western Bulldogs. Billings is obviously the big talking point here, and he's fantastic value because his price has not changed, because he scored a 10 in round 0 when he was the sub, and scored a 140. How awesome was his performance? He had 23 possessions, 20 were kicks, 15 marks, 5 tackles, kicked a goal in 78% game time. Just absolute awesome score. Is he doing that every week? No, but he seems like if he's got that same role, that sort of half forward kind of role where he's kind of rolling up the ground a bit, I guess it's a high half forward role, then he could potentially be a fantastic value pick. So his ownership is only 4%. I really thought it probably will be a lot more. People will be trading him in before his game starts, but his break even's 31, and even if he scores an 81, he goes up by 42k. So I can see there'll be maybe a few wanting to try to bring him in. Petrarca, well, I won't talk about him too much because he's just typical Petrarca, doing really well. You'd be happy if he started him. Clayton Oliver, so he's the one that I've got my eye on. Obviously not to bring in now, but he's still actually doing really well, like Clayton Oliver. Like, even though he's had an interrupted preseason, he's getting his hands on the ball still because you can't stop a gun like Clayton Oliver. He still had 35 possessions. It's just a champ, this guy. And 6 clearances, 5 marks, 21 of those possessions of 35 were kicks. So he's still getting the ball. So I think just that first game he got an 89, and then this one he got 114. So he's dropped 29k. So he's under $1 million now. His break even's 132, which to Clayton Oliver probably means nothing because he could get a 132 in his sleep if he really wanted to. But again, because of the whole preseason thing, that might impact that. His projected score is 104, and even if he gets that, he'll lose 12k. So I'm keeping my eye on him. I'm hoping that he actually puts in a really low score so his price drops, because I will be looking at trying to get him in after his bye, because he's just a gun, Clayton Oliver, and you can't stop good players like that even if they've had an interrupted preseason. He's a high-end talent, high-end fantasy champ is Clayton Oliver. Looking through, Christian Salem, I think, he's owned by 9%. Okay, so there's a few that own him. Went up 31k, scored well, got an 88, and then a 95 in round 1 because he's actually getting a bit more midfield time. Break even of 75. Are you bringing him in though? If you own him, you're keeping him, no doubt. But if you're going to bring him in, I don't think so. I think there's other better value picks in that 700 to 800k range. Again, I get back to that Matt Crouch. Looking through, so Blake Howes I've already spoken about. Marty Hoare as well. I think I speak about him, I'm not sure. But Marty Hoare's one that you if you're desperate for a rookie, here's one you could probably bring in. It's gone up 21k, break even of 20. If he scores a 63, he goes up another 36k. So I actually think he's a rookie worth bringing into the team if you don't have some of these better rookies. Because I think with Bowie out, he's got that job security now. And even though he's kind of like not playing as loose, and I think he's more like playing as a man, like he's manning up as a defender, he still scored a 62. So I think that's still worth having him in your team. If there's no other better options. Like for me, I could go Budarick, Tamati Hall, but I would rather go to D'Ambrosio. I just like the role more, and he's got that high score in his price cycle. Caleb Windsor. So Windsor did okay, but he got subbed out. Now it makes you think, like, is he going to start as the sub? Is he going to get subbed out more often? I guess if you own him, you're still holding him. He's gone up 38k. His break-even's 15. So even if he scores a 50, he goes up by 29k. So yeah, you'd hold him, but I wouldn't be looking at bringing him in. And I think that's it for Melbourne. For the Western Bulldogs, Tim English, you'd probably be waiting if you don't own him. His break-even's 134. You want to wait till he comes down, but you just can't with Tim English, because even though his break-even's 134, he could easily get that. But if you own him, obviously you're pretty happy. You don't care whether he drops a bit in value or not. You're keeping him for the whole year. And I'll be keeping an eye on him just in case his price drops. Libba, he's probably not owned by many, only 1%. But here's another one where, because he scored just a 90 in round one, in that last round, he's gone down by 11k and his break-even's 122. He's a good player, but let's see if his price drops a bit more. Let's see. So Riley Sanders, spoke about already. Harvey Gallagher spoke about. Nick Caulfield, if you own him, you're still holding on to him, but you're not bringing him in. He only went up 3k. His break-even's 41. He scored a 44. So, yeah, I mean, really, how much is he going to make for us? I mean, you've got to remember, the guy hasn't played footy in a long time. And it was his first game, so you got to cut him some slack. I think he should improve and get better than that. So if you own him, you're holding. If you don't own him, there's probably other better rookies you could jump on. And James Harms, I don't think many own him, and if they don't, I'm not talking about him. So yeah, no one really owns him, so let's not worry about him. And so Caleb Daniel, yeah. Anyway. I wouldn't imagine there'd be anyone that really owns Caleb Daniel, right? Let's see. 14. Oh, okay. So there's 14% that own Caleb Daniel. All right. So he's gone down 35k. He started as the sub, and his break-even's 129 now. If he scores a 76, he'll go down by 33k. So yeah, if you own him, you're jumping off. Absolutely jumping off. And if you don't own him, well then for most of us, let's just see how his role goes. He'll bottom out, and then maybe if he gets back into the team permanently, then we can maybe look at bringing him in at a much lower price than what he's at. And that's it. Yeah, so that's that game. Second last game, Port and West Coast. So if you've got players like, look, they played against West Coast at home. So you're expecting Port players to do really well. So Rosie and Butters, and if you own them, you're happy with them. There's still value. So Butters is 93. Rosie is, okay, yeah, right. So Butters is probably the better value, rather than going Rosie, because, Rosie's like 959k. But Butters is only 903k, and I reckon Butters and Rosie will probably average the same this year. Solder, I wouldn't think many would own him, to only 2%, but I actually think he's going to do pretty well this year as a solo ruck. He scored a 98, his break even 65, but I would say most of us have Gawn, Grundy, Sherry, English, probably the main ones there. So I know he's probably not owned by many, but I've been big on Horn Francis. He's 7% owned, scored an 87, went up by 14k, break even is 63. But I actually think he's going to have a great year. Probably more suited to Supercoach than fantasy, but he should still do well this year. Dan Houston, so he didn't have a great score to start with, so he's owned by 7%. There's a few that own him. Went down by 14k, 114 break even. If he scores an 85, he goes down by another 14k. Let's just keep an eye on him. And then Ollie Wines, of course. So Wines, there's 13% that own him, including myself. I know I already spoke about him, but yeah, let's see how he goes next week. And yeah, so that's it. West Coast, Elliot Yeo, I've spoken about already. Not really many here to talk about with West Coast. And then Harley Reid I've spoken about as well. So yeah, okay. So moving on to the last game, Fremantle Brisbane. Caleb Sarong, of course, he's the big talking point. If you've started with him, boy, are you happy with with that game? So he scored a 161. He's gone up 39k, over $1 million now, and break even of 85. Even if he scores a 106, or if he goes a 106, he goes up another 25k. So I don't think you're bringing him in. He's like 9% owned. Yeah. He's over $1 million, so I wouldn't be bringing him in. There's much better value picks to get. Luke Ryan, he scored all right. So Brayshaw's the other one. I think many would have jumped off Brayshaw. They were worried about his role and is he playing more on the wing, but he still scored a 118. Went up 5k. He's 117 break even. If you started with him, obviously you're pretty happy with him, but I don't know if you'd be bringing him in personally. Jordan Clark, there was a bit of talk from Jordan Clark. Obviously, Cal from the Traders has been big on him. 7% owned, and went up 15k, 71 break even. If he scores an 88, he goes up another 19k. But I think I did see somewhere, where did I see? There might have been on AFL Ratings Twitter, that Clark has had some strapping on the calf this week and has been managed this week. So let's just see how he pulls up. But he could be, I guess, a good pick there. Luke Jackson, I've spoken about. Hayden Young, I've spoken about. Nat Fife as well. Jeremy Sharp as well. And that's probably it. Because, Warner, McDonald, all these guys got injured. So no one else really. For Brisbane, there's no one really. I don't know how many own Dunkley. Let's see. Only 2%. Yeah, so I'm not going to talk about him. If you own him, you're happy with that. But yeah, there's no one really that I can see flicking through this team. It's probably worth a mention. So yeah, so that's it for all the games for this round. So there's a fair bit to have a think about for your teams. Hopefully you did have a good week last week. If you didn't, it's not the end of the world. Even if you're ranked far back, I've started terribly in the past and then ended up ranking, in the top 500 in the past. So, you can obviously get back from here. You just make the right moves, the right trades, and then you'll be right. But again, getting your rookies right is really important. So, I hope your team goes really well this week. I'll obviously try to put out another video, a fantasy video, like a round 2 review early next week. And then discuss trades and captaincy and so forth. So thanks for listening, or thanks for watching. Really appreciate it, and I'll catch you next week.